Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another one-man review. Just got this in the mail today and blew right through it. The Blouse by Bastien Vives from Ablaze. Bastien Vives is just, over the last couple years, one of my top cartoonists, comic artists. I'll grab anything Bastien Vives does. It's all amazing, and this book is no different. Um, Bastien Vives is most often challenging, especially in the areas of like sexual, like there can be very uncomfortable sexuality in his books, but also just, I mean, his drawing is so good and his writing is so good and so adult and smart and like real. There's never any like big conflict in a book. It's always kind of like just characterization and character development. And this book is no different. This book is just beautiful book. I Ablaze always kind of prints his stuff on cheap paper with like kind of overly glossy books. So I'm not so excited about how Ablaze handles his work, but I can see through their production to just what his work really is. Um, One of the things that always gets me with Bastien Vives's work is just the way he draws women. He has a way of drawing, like here, just these couple images of her just there studying in class. To me, are just like really attractive. He knows how to make women attractive, or at least it's like my type, kind of like a more quiet, thoughtful. I don't know, like they're beautiful, but they're not flaunting it or something. It's not this girl here, right? Um, so just the way he does that with such few simple lines is always amazing to me. If you watch any of my other reviews of his stuff, I always comment on how he'll leave the eyes out. That's something I'm definitely stealing here and there, playing with in my sketchbook. But this story takes one of those like uh, kind of studious, quiet women. Here's another like just totally different, sexy, confident, no eyes again. But it takes her and turns her into a sexy, confident woman just because, and that's the blouse. She babysits this kid. This is the premise. I'm not going to give away much about the book, but the premise is she she's like the mousy girl that is girlfriend to a nerdy computer gamer guy, and um, she goes and babysits this kid. The kid throws up on her shirt, and so the guy who's come home and had a fight with his wife lends her his wife's blouse. And as soon as she puts on the wife's blouse, she kind of re-sees herself as like, oh, like I'm sexy, I'm confident. Like this nice silk blouse really does something for her. And then it just follows her like throughout the next year of her life, showing how this blouse has changed her character and affected her. And a lot of that has to do with how people react to her as she's wearing this blouse. So like here you see kind of the first time she's out in public with it. She goes to class and she has to give a presentation, and she gets called up to do it in front of the class, and you can see her like taking off the jacket, and it's like, oh, she's got these big boobs and this big sexy blouse. Like, oh, here we go. God, look at that drawing though. That's way sexier than the boobs and the silk blouse. Is how Bastien Vives used lines. But she gets up and gives this speech, and you can tell like the reaction that every guy in the room is having to her, and she starts to realize that she's never had that happen before, and starts realizing it in public, seeing those reactions, and it changes her. So it's an interesting character study. I Within there's built in a critique of like, how she's gonna get more things from people, whether positive or negative, in terms of attention and things given to her, just because of her sexuality. There's like a huge critique in that. But then also all throughout the book, like this is just Bastien Vives like having like getting to draw some pretty filthy sex scenes, and um, I don't know, like it's interesting. I'm curious to see what, maybe I'll run this by Tori and see what she thinks of this story. Like, is he actually writing a sympathetic female character, or is this just male fantasy? Like, I'm not sure. I find the character so like attractive in the way he presents her. I'm assuming this is just gonna fall into like male fantasy, especially as she gets a little more sexualized herself throughout the book. Uh, One thing that I find the most interesting about the relationships is the book in presented in the book are her and her boyfriend. This is a boyfriend that she had before she got this sexy blouse, and you get the sense that he's not as awed by her in the blouse as everyone else, which I don't know if that's entirely accurate, but she's just herself to him. You know, like she's not just this like, wow, who's this? I mean, definitely you could still like be in a relationship with someone for a long time and they come home and you're like, wow, you're looking extra good today, but you don't get the sense that he's as blown over by her as everyone else is in this blouse, and that has to do with familiarity. That's the kind of just really acute observation, well observed, as Sean would say, that well observed writing that Bastien Vives does. His stuff is so adult in like a really good drama sense of the word. Also in this book, pretty sexually explicit, so I'll be careful about flipping through it. But it's that type of writing that always just it makes me die for what he's doing. He can land so much with so little in his writing and in his drawing. So I don't want to give away any more than that. I really think you should just go read this book for yourself. Bastien Vives, I can't say enough good things about him. I will say there's also a couple points later in the book that like take the story in a different direction and then back, and so there's some really surprising, shocking moments in the book too that could be like the big narrative peak, but they're just like this thing that happens that should be what this story is about, really. There's one thing in particular I'm thinking about that like that could have been its whole own book, but he's chosen this smaller thing that persists through all those bigger things that had a dramatic impact on a person's character, their personality. And that's interesting to me. It's just I don't know. It's so smart. I'm gonna stop because I'm just gonna keep saying all this wonderful stuff about it. But if you're put off by some sexually explicit stuff, uh, then there's that. And there's one scene as well where he draws this little girl with her pants off that might be uncomfortable for some people. And given some of the other stuff I've seen by him, I'm a little uncomfortable with it as well. Like A Sister is definitely I like the book, but it was definitely like kid sexuality. And then if you haven't seen Bastien Vives's Instagram, he does some pretty wild shit where he does these cartoons with he's obviously a tits man, not an ass man, but he does these ridiculous cartoons with just these women with giant breasts. But there's some of them too that like involve kids in weird ways. So that's something I'm kind of paying attention to with his work is how far does it go into that realm before it's too far, and how close is he trying to get to it? So I don't know. Anyways, really good work, but there's a couple things in there that for some people might put them off. But I would highly recommend this book for everyone. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, the two best ways to support us are we have a Patreon, so that's always really appreciated. That especially is able to help us get books, especially help Sean get the books that me and him talk about together. So that's very helpful to keep us going. But then the most important way that you can help is support Sean's publishing ventures through Living the Line Publishing. So we'll take a look at some of the books that he has put out or that will be coming out. House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's like really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color in there that's going to look really, really beautiful and has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart. The Abolition of Man issue 2 kicks off a two-part storyline called Hodtech. This is a science fiction satire written by myself and Sean. I wrote issue 2, he wrote issue 3. It's taking a look at a world in which AIs are doing all the jobs and we humans just have jobs just to stay busy. We're all on universal basic income. This is still all illustrated by the Midjourney AI. We were just prompting it to work in a pen and ink style, going in afterwards and kind of playing with color and stuff like that. But still a fully AI illustrated comic book that is a satire about AI. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.